welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace. We're in season 3 now. I want to thank all my guests and everybody that's been on. Had some really popular guests, and I had some guests that kind of kept the streamline going, and that's one thing I want to talk about because a lot of people that are doing podcasts and people that ask when I get started, how do you pick which guest gets which spot and which guest goes here and there? I've always collaborated with my guests. I never treat any guest different than the next guest because I know certain guests are going to generate a certain number, then I know some are going to generate another type of number or a different demographic. So the best example is I'll go back to we'll go to music first. I had two artists on, Drop Top Dre and Lotus Jackson. Lotus Jackson is located out in California, and his range is California, Houston, and obviously where I'm on the East Coast, he would generate a different kind of buzz than say Drop Top Dre, which Drop Top Dre is in New York, has a strong YouTube presence, just like Lotus Jackson, but his demographic of drill rap is way different than the R&B form that Mr. Lotus Jackson has. So those two, with space in between them, range out very well. So my take on things was I'd have those two artists on. I was really excited to have them. Space them out at two different times. Put something in between that. I found that a lot of my listeners love to hear from people with experiences, be it a life coach, be it addiction counselor, be it someone that's writing a book. And the other thing to keep in with my West Virginia crowd, I had a storyteller or an author, Carly Bell, come on, and Carly Bell was very down to earth and was very in that vibe of West Virginia. It's something that I had kind of strayed away from in doing my podcast, and it brought that West Virginia crowd back and got people more involved with her having a children's story. That's something way different. And along those lines, in between there, I did niche podcasts for reviews of projectors, things that I liked. They didn't always hit the numbers that I wanted necessarily, but it was doing something different to kind of refresh because in that whole mist of Carly Bell in the West Virginia farmers market with Erica, those two right there were so big that my first thought was that Carly Bell's episode was going to be my biggest show. And it turned out that West Virginia Farmers Market turned around to be my biggest show at that time because I was doing the heavier promotion with Carly Bell stuff, which still brought in great numbers. Not saying anything bad about that. But the West Virginia Farmers Market was something that was going on because of COVID-19. People were going back out here. People are not doing all this mom and pop. They are doing the mom and pop thing. They're going to the farmers market. They're going to get groceries. And some people, don't have the knowledge of what's going on in the actual state of West Virginia, and that show catapulted between both of them. It was such a high volume that I had no material at the time that could match that. So what I did was I went back in and I used old podcasts that didn't necessarily make the cut. They were kind of they were vintage ones that were going to make that should have been on here early on, but did not make the cut. So I put those in, and it kind of brought my numbers low. But it brought me a different type of audience because when we're doing all these podcasts, you look at keeping a steady audience, but you also look at the unique listeners. And I've had numerous people come back to tell me that, hey, your projector review helped me decide on buying this one, or your projector review made me look different on this projector. So awesome. Then with the streaming parts that I was doing for video games and all this stuff, the video games didn't necessarily hit the core audience I thought it would, but that was one of the things that comes with the territory. But the streaming updates, in between the two times I did them, we saw Quibi just fall off the map, which I thought it was very genius. It was a great thing for 15-minute breaks and stuff like that. But I don't know. It was just one of those things where it just literally the streaming episode took off, the gaming one didn't. Apple versus Fortnite was one of the bigger things of the summer back in August. That took off. And the show that ended up for the longest time being my best rated show was the Gladys Knight versus Patti LaBelle. The dynamic of me and my cousin Devontae, for some reason, it generates heavy numbers for me. So that was one of those things where I was like, I'm going to have to bring him on. I need to ask him if it's alright with him to get him on there and have him as a constant. And you notice we had more adult themed things on the show with him, such as like where we did the Ghosted episode, which the Ghosted episode did phenomenal numbers, but it didn't do better numbers than our non-adult themed stuff, where we kind of just bantered around about different things and talked about his music career and things like that. So the lessons that I learned there, and like I said, I always do this little episode right here for other podcasters. I dipped and dabbed into different episodes, and I found what was good for me and what worked out better for me. And I know that not always being by myself is a good thing on an episode. It's good to have variety. And this whole deal about a round table, that's something that I'm trying to get this concept out there more in my podcast and trying to do that. And I think in the near future I will. And then the awesome thing that I like about my audience is my audience sends me messages through the Anchor app. And you can always send me anything through jr3650sp@gmail.com. You can always message me on the West Virginia Uncommonplace Facebook page, or you can on the Instagram page at West Virginia Uncommonplace altogether. A lot of people were excited about some of the people, like a great deal are excited about Carly Bell. But my very last episode with Heather Ross, tons of people, there's been an outpour they want her to come back on to do more. And tentatively we have talks to have her come back on. And a lot of my other artists, such as Drop Top Dre, Lotus Jackson, I received quite a few, it's, in the upwards of 30 or 40 people like, hey, what else is going on with this guy? Because sometimes when you listen to a podcast, you skip through things and you don't catch everything. So that's one thing that I will be going back to do. I will be having recurring guests coming back. And hopefully from season 2, I'm not going to go into every detail about every person, but quite a few of those people I would like to come back when they have other things going on also. So I'm mainly just trying to cater to my audience with certain things, and I'm still doing things that fit my mode, but I'm going a little bit outside the box. And with the response of people, people want to know a little bit more with the paranormal and things like that. And those are realms that I haven't touched into, but we will get into this season on season 3. So once again, I'm glad that everyone in the audience is being vocal about what they want to hear, because I understand you listen to these things on your drive home, different places, different things like that. So I'm so humble and so grateful that people will actually take the time to give me their feedback and their input. Like somebody told me I need to turn the mic down some, because when you're listening to it in the car, it's got a reverb or something like that. I was told that certain subject matters, such as the whole ghosting thing, if I want to present something like that, let's have a bigger panel for that, because that ghosting episode could have went way further with other people's stories in it. Because when you're listening to these podcasts, you give them 15 to 25 minutes, and outside of that, you want entertainment also in that. And some of the banter between me and my cousin is entertaining, but with that ghosted episode, there could have been so much more that could have been done. And I like that kind of constructive, creative criticism, because it makes the podcast even better. The only thing that I did take away that was kind of negative to me, but I will run with it. I was told that my podcast is very enjoyable, or the podcast is very enjoyable, but maintain once a week episode, and then once in a while, like this episode I'm doing right here, throw something like this in there to get the crowd going. It's nice to hear back from you, just me on a podcast once in a blue moon. So I'm like, hey, I can do that. I can take a little bit of time at all these podcasts and make a podcast and just talk and tell you everything that's going on. And like I said, I'm really out here. I'm not being picky about the guests I get, but I am being a little bit more choosy on what I think will be good for the podcast and what the audience wants. Because there's so many different topics you can go through. That's why I have a just plain flat podcast so that we can talk about anything and everything. And basically, that's what we'll keep doing. So once again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to West Virginia and Commonplace, and I will keep the episodes flowing. Now, to keep going with everything, I'm going to do something a little different. I might not go over necessarily statistics, but I'll tell you how things rounded out for me. Okay, the first initial episode on August 5th, it did fairly decent. 2020, that was that episode. Streaming services did very well, like I already spoke of that. But here are the ones I didn't talk about, Devontae and Devontae Part 2. Those two kind of catapulted Lotus Jackson. Like, the listeners from that stayed consistent with that. And from Lotus Jackson, my numbers really, really jumped for Gladys Knight, Patti LaBelle. Then the Drop Top Dre episode did really high numbers. So both of those two kind of paralleled. Dealing with people, and thanks to my crowd episode, it got alarming numbers. Like, it jumped up. It actually eventually, because not everything is to its complete end now, but in a 30-day stretch, it did really high numbers for the shows that are just me talking. It's actually my highest rated show just with me on there. Rosa and the Uplifting Story, I apologize because I don't talk much about this one, but Rosa's numbers were very, very good. And the thing that I really liked about her episode was when she was on here, she told what went on in her life and what was going on. And she had a product placement, but she didn't overstep her bounds with the product placement. And I thank her for that. Devontae returned. And from the Rosa and Devontae episode, there was kind of a shift. The number was steady, like I was plateauing, like it was just a nice little line it rode. Then the thing, we never talk about the behind the scene things, but the Carly Bell episode, we recorded it one time, and it was just pure trash. Like, after I had somebody edit it, it didn't come out right. The wrong copy got put on the internet. So we pulled it, and then luckily she had enough free time in her schedule that we went in, did a shorter version of what we did before, and just got it out of the way. So her show came out on October 6th, which is hitting its 30-day mark, and that's amazing. West Virginia Farmers Market. Me and Erica, pretty much, we did that show. I don't remember exactly what day it was, but it was pretty good chemistry. She's very informative. She had everything set up. I sent her some questions. We got that one going. And that one, to this date, as of right now, is my biggest show. TV streaming kind of dropped numbers there, and how to make a podcast. The difference between how to make a podcast to TV streaming is that how to make a podcast gave me a streamline. And then when I started doing the podcast challenges, just talking about what goes on there, that was one of my smaller episodes that was just a few minutes. It was about an 8-minute episode. It did fairly well. Then the episode that I've had on longest back order, like Carmen, her episode, a lot of people that actually record with me now say that's one of their most favorite episodes when it comes to the authors and the detail and how we talked about things. And people ask a lot about her. And her episode did these amazing numbers. Like, it pretty much set up my Ghosted episode that came out a week later. It kind of put that into its own realm. And then to finish my season, Heather Ross's episode just came together, and it was like one of those big deals where her message was so big that when she did the episode with me, and I'm not trying to take too much time to just talk about her, but when she did the episode with me, I knew what it would do for the area of West Virginia. But it was at a time frame where I already may have had episodes, but I didn't have something that could finish off season 2 as strong as the Carly Bell episode and the West Virginia Farmers Market episode. So from that point on, it was like, wow, what do you come with after that? And by season 3, I had talked to Lark Galley, and she, like, when we're going to look for these people, or I'm going to look for someone, I look at your story and I look at how relatable your story can be, and how distant and different your episode would be for people. Like, what if someone dealt with her powerful message that was involved with suicide? How many people really deal with that? And then we're having all these mental health empowered episodes. So let's keep that flowing. And that's what I did there. I tried to keep that going and going, and hopefully I keep that structure going, and then slowly transition to something else, and then we go from there, and then we go on to something else, and then other little small parts that I want to add in here, I'll definitely be able to do. Um, so that is basically how everything has unfolded since then. And once again, uh, the great thing about this is that each week you get a set of unique listeners. It's always great. I love to retain my listeners, but you get unique listeners, people that listen on different platforms that normally don't listen on my mainstays, which my mainstays now are Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts to a certain degree. For some reason, people with Androids don't show me that much love. Obviously, Anchor. On my way to getting on iHeartRadio, not there yet, but we're getting there. Send a submission to NPR just for giggles. So it's so much that will take place, and I want to thank you guys once again.